Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now back in 2014 AMD launched the AM1 series of processors. This wonderfully inexpensive range of low power CPUs were, as I seem to recall, horrible. I tend to avoid shorter videos these days for both the sake of the algorithm and because most of you enjoy the longer format, but for the sake of my sanity I just could not keep using this machine. I only paid £35 for the whole build, and the case more than pays for the expense. The Cooler Master Elite 110 is a fantastic little ITX enclosure, even if this one did need a little bit of super glue to put it right. When I read Athlon Quad Core in the description, I thought, okay, what a bargain, but certain factors in combination with this processor's age really aid in bringing together this little package of horrors. You've probably seen the 2 sticks of DDR3 RAM, right? Irrelevant. We're limited to single channel with this chip. You've probably also seen the SSD too. Solid state drive, more like sluggishly slow diabolicalness. The SSD is a nice addition, don't get me wrong, and it seems like a decent brand, but it has Windows 10 installed, which seems to be more of a hindrance to this hardware. Windows 7 would be better, or Linux. A lightweight Linux distro would do the trick nicely, I reckon. Having experienced an AM1 chip before in the form of a Sempron, I was sort of relieved when the system didn't boot, but I couldn't resist trying to fix it, and it seems that reseating the CPU resolved things, after trying everything else, of course. I spent way too long troubleshooting this machine. I thought it was fried out of the box, but here we are. I'm a little bit offended and upset that it decided to work, and I'm angry at myself for fixing it. Booting up the system into Windows 10 and using it to browse the web wasn't horrendous, but it wasn't exactly consistent. There were a couple of hitches and stutters, and at this point I decided to fire up Cinebench R20 to try and gauge the processor's raw performance. Boy, what a mistake. The multi-core test took long enough, and a score of 266 is just, well, it's pretty bad. The next decision I made will end up haunting me for the rest of my life. I decided to run the single core test. I recorded the whole thing too, but for the sake of my patience and your precious time, I have sped it up for the video. Quite a bit, actually. It took over an hour to complete. Now, I saw a funny post on Reddit about how one person's Cinebench test took 57 hours to complete, but the reaction underneath is what really got me. It just said, dear God. Thankfully, the Athlon 5150 isn't that bad, but an hour is still a long time to lose, and it certainly feels like it when you're spending it doing nothing but watching some small squares fill up with a portion of a picture. When this was nearly complete, I sat back and waited for my score to come rolling in like an Olympic champion looking up at the timer, hoping that they've broken another world record. It wasn't quite the same, of course, but it felt like I was still about to break some sort of record, maybe the worst Cinebench score this month or something. 71 points. At least 69 would have been funny. I don't even know where this would fit in comparatively. Maybe Core 2 Duo territory? Worse, perhaps? Honestly, the case made this purchase worth it alone, in my opinion, and I didn't even know I was getting the case because there was no picture with the listing, so it was actually a nice surprise. I can sell the other bits and probably get my money back, maybe a tad more, but before that, you're probably wondering how the CPU power, or lack thereof, translates into real-world performance, along with the onboard HD 8400/R3 graphics. That's right, this chip has an onboard GPU for what it's worth, but the CPU prevents it from reaching its maximum potential. Usually it's the other way around, but not with this. CSGO was the only game I tested, and at 800 by 600 I think the results speak for themselves. I was playing against bots, so maybe we were losing a couple of extra frames, what with the extra strain on the already suffering CPU, but 640 by 480 would have been a better bet. As I mentioned before, Windows 7 or Linux would have definitely helped this thing out, but I'll be adding a graphics card to this system at some point for another ultimate bottleneck video. Maybe we'll pair the 5150 with a 3070. I would have tacked those results onto this one, but I just couldn't bear to use this system anymore today. I've never come away from testing a PC feeling exhausted, but there's a first time for everything, and there's certainly a last time for everything too, which in this case would be buying anything with one of these processors in it. Never again. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like down below. Leave a dislike if you didn't. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Let me know what you think of this CPU, as well as if you use one, of course, down below in the comments. And hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.